All right, so we're diving into Act 5, Scene 3 of Macbeth, and things are really heating up.
Yeah, it's getting intense.
It is. Macbeth is king, but everything's falling apart around him.
Right. Enemies are closing in. His wife's, well, she's not doing so well.
No, not at all.
And he's still clinging to those witches' prophecies.
Like it's the only thing keeping him afloat.
Exactly. But we know how Shakespeare likes to play with our expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Always keeping us on our toes.
So the big question looming over this scene is Macbeth really the villain here?
Or is he just a guy who made some seriously bad choices?
Yeah, and this scene really makes us think about that.
We see him at his most vulnerable.
Struggling with fear and guilt, facing the consequences of his ambition.
It's a far cry from the confident Macbeth we saw earlier.
Oh yeah, that facade is definitely cracking.
It starts right from his opening line, "Till Birnam Wood removed to Dunsinane, I cannot taint with fear."
Almost like he's challenging fate.
But there's this desperation underneath it all,
Like he's trying to convince himself more than anyone.
trying to hold on to that last shred of hope.
And that's where the dramatic irony kicks in.
Dramatic irony. Always a good time.
Right. We, the audience, we know Birnam Wood, IS.
Moving Malcolm's army, using branches as camouflage.
And Macbeth is completely in the dark.
So he's holding on to this false sense of security.
Ah.
Then, bam, a terrified servant bursts in.
With news from the battlefield.
And Macbeth, well, he doesn't exactly handle it calmly.
Not at all. He just explodes at the poor guy.
Calling him a cream-faced loon, it's kind of jarring.
It really is, especially compared to the controlled Macbeth we've seen before.
This outburst shows us his true feelings, the fear and anxiety bubbling to the surface.
Exactly. It's like he's projecting his own insecurities onto this messenger.
It's a crucial moment for understanding his character.
You can practically see him losing control.
And from there, his behavior just spirals.
He demands his armor, then changes his mind, then demands it again.
It's like he's physically mirroring the chaos in his mind.
He's lost friends, respect, possibly even his wife's sanity.
It's all catching up to him.
And then there's this moment of self-awareness. It's chilling.
Yeah, he reflects on everything he should have in old age: honor, love, obedience, friends.
But instead, he's surrounded by curses, not loud but deep.
It's a brutal reality check.
He sees the emptiness of his existence, the price of his ambition.
He's traded genuine connection for a crown that feels more like a burden.
He's surrounded by enemies, haunted by guilt. His kingdom is falling apart.
It's a powerful image of the consequences of making the wrong choices.
It really makes you think about the choices we make, even in our own lives.
So we've got Macbeth spiraling, but what about Lady Macbeth?
She's not physically in this scene, but her absence is definitely felt.
Macbeth asks the doctor, "How does your patient, doctor?"
And the answer is pretty unsettling.
We learn she's suffering a complete mental breakdown.
The doctor says she's troubled with thick-coming fancies that keep her from her rest.
Which basically means she's tormented by these overwhelming, disturbing thoughts.
Remember how she thought she could wash away their guilt?
Yeah, turns out it's not that easy.
The consequences of their actions are much harder to erase.
It's like the guilt and horror have manifested in her mental state.
And Macbeth, desperate to help her, begs the doctor to cure her of that.
He even asks him to pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow, raise out the written troubles of the brain.
It's a heartbreaking plea, and so ironic.
The man who caused so much suffering now wants to erase the pain he helped create.
It's a fascinating contradiction.
And his language becomes so poetic in this speech.
Using these vivid metaphors to describe her intangible torment.
It shows us another side of Macbeth.
That even amidst chaos, he's capable of deep emotion.
Adding another layer to this complex character.
Exactly. It's what makes Shakespeare so brilliant. Yeah, it's a reminder that actions have consequences, even for someone like Macbeth who thought he was above it all.
Definitely. And it makes you think about those choices we make, even the small ones.
Right, like who we hang out with, how we treat others.
It all adds up, shapes who we become.
And Macbeth's choices, well, they've had some pretty massive consequences.
And the doctor's response to Macbeth's plea? It's interesting.
It is, he says. Therein the patient must minister to himself.
Meaning there's no quick fix for what Lady Macbeth's going through.
She has to face her own demons.
It's a tough reality, but it speaks to this idea of personal accountability.
That you can't escape the consequences of your actions.
It's a timeless theme for sure.
You see it everywhere, even today, with celebrities, athletes, people who seem to have it all.
And then their lives fall apart because of bad choices.
It reminds us that we're all human, We all make mistakes.
and we have to deal with the fallout.
So Macbeth realizes the doctor can't help Lady Macbeth.
He's obviously frustrated, scared. What does he do next?
Well, he kind of gives up on the whole cure her thing.
Shifts his focus back to the battle that's coming.
He tells the doctor, throw physic to the dogs, and demands his armor.
Like he's channeling all that anxiety into this last stand.
Yeah, it's almost like a cornered animal.
Then there's that line, I'll fight till from my bones my flesh be hacked.
Wow, he's ready to go down swinging.
Even though, deep down, he probably knows it's a losing battle.
And he keeps going back to that prophecy about Birnam Wood.
It's like a mantra at this point.
He says, I will not be afraid of death and bane till Birnam Forest come to Dunsinane.
Like if he says it enough, it'll actually be true.
It's the power of belief, even when it's based on a lie.
We all do that sometimes, convince ourselves of something.
Even when we know it's not really true.
It's that human need for hope, for something to hold on to.
And for Macbeth, this prophecy is all he has left.
But we know the truth, and it makes his insistence all the more tragic.
It's like watching someone walk towards a cliff edge.
You want to stop them, but you can't.
And Shakespeare uses that dramatic irony so effectively.
We know Macbeth's doomed, but he still thinks he's invincible.
It creates this incredible sense of suspense.
You're just waiting for the inevitable to happen.
So Macbeth goes off to prepare for battle, and the doctor stays behind.
And he says something really interesting.
Yeah, he says, were I from Dunsinane away and clear, profit again should hardly draw me here.
Meaning, he wouldn't come back to this place, even if you paid him.
He's seen enough, the horrors, the darkness.
He wants no part of it.
It's powerful because the doctor's supposed to be a healer.
He should be bringing comfort, but even he's repulsed.
It shows how toxic Macbeth's world has become.
His choices have corrupted everything. Even the doctor can't escape it.
It's a reminder that our actions can have a ripple effect.
They impact not just ourselves, but those around us.
So as we head into the final act, what are some key takeaways from this scene?
Well, we've seen Macbeth's facade crumble. He's desperate, clinging to a false hope.
He's isolated, full of despair, and his downfall feels imminent.
Yeah, it's like a train wreck in slow motion. You can't look away.
We know it's coming, but you still feel for the guy, even though it's his own fault.
That's what makes Shakespeare so great.
He doesn't give us easy answers. It's not black and white.
Macbeth, he's not just a villain, he's complex.
Yeah.
He's capable of terrible things, but he also has moments of regret.
And tenderness, like when he talks about Lady Macbeth.
He really wants to help her ease her suffering.
He uses such beautiful language to describe her pain.
It's a side of him we haven't seen before.
It's like even in all this despair, he still has empathy.
It reminds us that even the most flawed people have some good in them.
Yeah, it's that classic saying, there's good and bad in everyone.
And Shakespeare really makes us confront that duality in Macbeth.
We see his ambition, his ruthlessness, but also his vulnerability.
His fear, his love for his wife, it makes him a much more interesting character.
Absolutely, and that's why this scene is so important.
It helps us understand the whole play,
It shows us Macbeth as a human being.
not just a symbol of evil.
So as we head into the final act, what should we be looking for?
Now that we know Macbeth is basically falling apart,
Well, I think it's important to remember he's going into this battle with a broken mind.
he's delusional, desperate, clinging to that prophecy that's going to fail him.
So watch how those delusions play out in the fighting.
Will he still be that fierce warrior?
Or will his mental state affect him?
And when he realizes the truth about Birnam Wood, how will he react?
When that last bit of hope is gone?
Will he completely lose it?
Or will he finally accept his fate?
It's the big question, isn't it?
Will he fight to the bitter end?
Or will there be a moment of clarity, of remorse?
And don't forget about Lady Macbeth.
We know she's not going to survive this.
But how will her death affect Macbeth?
Will it bring him any peace?
Or push him further into darkness?
Shakespeare leaves a lot open to interpretation.
He gives us these amazing characters, these complex situations.
And lets us figure it out for ourselves.
That's why his work is still so relevant today.
He's inviting us to think about these big themes.
Ambition, power, guilt, the choices we make.
And those themes are just as important now as they were back then.
Yeah, we all face choices, and sometimes they have consequences we don't expect.
Macbeth's story is a warning, but it's also a reminder that we can change.
That even in the darkest times, there's hope for redemption.
So as we finish up this deep dive into Act 5, Scene 3, I encourage you to go back and read it again.
With these new ideas in mind.
Pay attention to Macbeth's words, his emotions, how everything's falling apart.
And as you read the final act, keep those big questions in mind.
How will it all end? What happens to Macbeth?
And what can we learn from his story?
I think you'll find that this scene really sets the stage for the finale
It's where all the tension comes together.
and leaves us wondering what's going to happen next.
Happy reading, everyone!